When you narrow your focus, you have a much better chance of being happy. You have power over your mind, not events. I control this little window of stuff today, and I'm just gonna crush it there. There's this image that the Stoics were unfeeling and unfun, which couldn't be further from the truth. The Stoics had spouses and children, they had hobbies, they went to parties, they had plenty of fun, and happiness was important to them too. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about a really underrated part of Stoicism, which is how it can make you happier as a human being. What is the number one source of our unhappiness? It's focusing on things that we don't control. Epictetus says the chief task in life is to separate things into two buckets, what's in my control and what's not in my control. And he says the only way to happiness is to cease worrying about things which are beyond my power of control. So when you narrow your focus from the things that everyone thinks about, from the things that everyone worries about, from all the things that are outside your grasp, and you decide to focus instead on what's up to me, you have a much better chance of being happy. Ultimately, what's in our control is our thoughts and our actions. I control this little window of stuff today, and I'm just gonna crush it there. That's where I'm gonna focus, and because I'm focused there, I know I can make myself happy. People think money will make them happy. Well, I'll tell you how you can become wealthier right now. It's by wanting less stuff, by needing less, right? Seneca says poverty is not being poor, poverty is wanting more. He's not saying that some struggling mother on welfare does not have it hard. What he's saying is that there are rich people who are very poor. So your wants and your happiness are in a tension with each other. So if you can decide to be grateful and satisfied and good with what you have now, you have a certain amount of wealth and you have something to be happy for. Epictetus says wealth is not having many possessions, it's having few wants. In Buddhism, they say that craving is the source of suffering. By focusing on what you have rather than what you don't have, the Stoics and the Buddhists both say you are eliminating a source of unhappiness. And I think when we're talking about wanting less, the other path to happiness related to this is the idea of simplification. Marcus Aurelius says, ask yourself, is this essential? Because most of what we want and do and say is not essential. We chase things we don't want. We chase things we don't actually care about. We make life so much more complicated than it needs to be. I think the pandemic was so powerful in this regard. In March of 2020, when life shut down and suddenly we weren't traveling, we weren't going to meetings, we weren't as busy as we have been our whole lives. My wife and I looked around our farm and we're like, I don't think we've ever been here and truly noticed how wonderful it was. So we found these wild blackberry bushes in our backyard. We watched more sunsets in a row than we'd ever seen. So by simplifying, by removing all the extraneous, the inessential things, I was reminded of the power and the importance of the essential things. If you want more happiness in your life, start by removing complexity, particularly unnecessary complexity. One of the things we tell ourselves that's going to make us happy, that's part of the happy life, is like, can't wait to go on vacation. When I hear people talking about all their crazy travel plans, I think, why not try to build a life that you don't want to escape from? Why not try to build a practice where you can get that peace and that relief from inside yourself? The other thing tied up in our modern definition of happiness is like pleasure, whether it's drugs or alcohol or sex. We think that thing, this external thing, is going to feel so good it will create happiness. So we think that if our marriage is unhappy, we'll be happier with this person, but we actually end up causing ourselves so much unhappiness. There's a great novel by Tom Wolfe about Stoicism called A Man in Full. There's this really haunting scene where this sort of rich, successful real estate developer, he wakes up next to his second wife. He divorced his older wife, and she's this young, beautiful person, but he's just like, who is this person? Like, we have nothing in common. He's basically just wakes up one day and realizes that in chasing pleasure and success, he actually got himself to a place of profound unhappiness. Peter Thiel, the billionaire, I once heard him at an event say something like, you want to look for things, for pleasures that don't have diminishing returns. And I think that's right. When I look out the window of my backyard, I can see nature. It never gives me less pleasure than the first time I saw it. Sunsets, sunrises, playing with my kids. These little pleasures, I never get tired of them. But chasing the newest thing, buying a new car, buying something fancy, having expensive this or that, these get old really quickly. And so the Stoics would say to try to find pleasure or happiness in simple things you control that never grow old. When I think about the moments that I felt happiest, they were moments of stillness. They were moments of focus. I think if I had to give you a secret for happiness, I would say it's presence, being in the present moment. Marcus Aurelius talks about the perfect sphere, rejoicing in its stillness. No one is less happy than the person who's pulled in a million directions. I think the Stoics would say that one source of our unhappiness is other people. In fact, Marcus Aurelius's thing about the obstacles of the way comes from talking about frustrating people. And he opens meditations by saying, look, the people you meet today are going to be frustrating and stupid and jealous and mean, right? He knows the reality of our fellow human beings, and they're not great. So part of happiness is being prepared for that. If you go through the world naive, delusional, expecting everyone's going to be your friend, everyone's going to be nice to you, everything's going to go your way, you are going to be constantly disappointed, and that is an obstacle to happiness. But what is a source of happiness is also other people you care about, people you're connected with, the people that you've built your life around. And I know this doesn't feel Stoic, but it is, within reason. Marcus Aurelius says he learns from Sextus the philosopher to be free of passion, but full of love. Love for his fellow human beings, love for the common good, love for the people that he loves. I don't want you to think that being a Stoic is like cutting yourselves off from attachments. Relationships are a key part of this too. Now, that doesn't mean that you hand over your happiness to other people. It does mean you have to understand that people are going to mess up, people are flawed. You have to understand all of this too. And in fact, I think by understanding it, you put yourself in a position to not be so vulnerable to it. And another key part of happiness is, of course, eliminating things that make you unhappy. What traumas do you have? What wounds do you have? Where are you struggling? Well, maybe you're unhappy in part because you had a traumatic or a painful childhood. But just pretending that you didn't, just stuffing it down, just gritting your teeth and bearing it, that's not going to contribute to your happiness. In fact, that's going to cause unhappiness because you're going to repeat that pattern in future relationships. You're going to believe that you're undeserving of happiness. So then getting help, asking questions, this is a key part of this too. Stoicism isn't stuffing the emotions down. It's processing the emotions. It's dealing with the emotions so you have room for the positive, wonderful emotions like happiness. What is Seneca's letters but Seneca writing these joyful, fun letters to his friend Lucilius? And you can tell that friendship is a key part of the Stoic. And you can tell that friendship is a key part of being successful as a Stoic. No man is an island, and certainly not a Stoic. In fact, the Stoics think that other people are what we're here for, and relationships to me are the most profound source of happiness. I hope you like this video. I hope you subscribe. But what I really want you to subscribe to is our daily Stoic email, 1 bit of Stoic wisdom, totally for free to the largest community of Stoics ever in existence. You can sign up at dailystoic.com/email. There's no spam. You can unsubscribe at any time. I love sending it. I've sent it every day for the last 6 years, and I hope to see you there at dailystoic.com/email.